The big shopping mall was full of life that day. People walked around with shopping bags, while others looked through store windows. In the middle of all this, a black janitor quietly cleaned the shiny floors. He wore a bright red MAGA hat that stood out against his clean work uniform. As he pushed his cleaning cart, he stopped to help pick up trash and fix things that were out of place. He worked with care and took pride in keeping the mall clean. A little girl dropped her toy, and he quickly picked it up, giving it back with a kind smile. Some shoppers noticed his helpful nature, while others just walked past. Near the main entrance, the mall manager watched him with angry eyes. The tall white man stood in his expensive suit, arms crossed tightly. His face got more upset each time he looked at the janitor's red hat. He thought the hat made the mall look bad and didn't fit with its fancy image. The manager decided he needed to do something about it. He fixed his tie and walked towards the janitor, ready to cause trouble. The janitor continued his work, not knowing how angry the manager was getting. He bent down to fix a fallen sign and moved a crooked plant back into its right place near the entrance. He did everything with care and love for his job, but the manager saw it all differently. To him, the janitor's bright red MAGA hat was like a challenge, something he didn't want in his fancy mall. Taking a deep breath, the manager walked forward quickly, his shiny shoes making loud sounds on the clean floor. He stopped close to the janitor, speaking in a cold, mean voice. "Excuse me," he said, making the janitor look up. "This is a nice mall and you're making it look bad." The janitor stood up slowly and looked straight at the manager's angry face. "I'm just here to do my job," he answered calmly. His peaceful response only made the manager more upset, and everyone could feel the tension building in the air. A few shoppers slowed down to watch what was happening, sensing that something big was about to unfold. The manager's anger exploded as he moved even closer, raising his voice. "That hat doesn't belong in this workplace," he shouted, pointing at the janitor's head. People walking by started to stop and stare. They whispered to each other, wondering what was wrong. The janitor stayed peaceful and said, "I don't understand why my hat is a problem. I'm just here to work." The manager's face got red, and his voice became cold and mean. "This is my mall, and I won't let someone like you make it look bad. You're bothering everyone here." The janitor took a slow breath and stood up straight, but didn't get angry back. His calm behavior only made the manager more upset and nastier. More people gathered around them now. Many pulled out their phones to record what was happening, shaking their heads at how the manager was acting. The janitor looked at the crowd for a moment, then turned back to the manager. "I think you're making a big mistake," he said quietly but firmly. The manager laughed in a mean way and crossed his arms. "We'll see about that," he snapped, and then yelled for security to come. The air felt heavy with tension as everyone waited to see what would happen next. The manager thinks he's about to win, but what happens next will leave you speechless. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the moment this entitled manager gets what's coming to him. The next part of this story has already shocked thousands of viewers. But before we continue, let me ask you, have you ever witnessed someone abuse their power like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's see what happens when security arrives. The janitor stayed strong, and more people watched him with interest. Even after the manager's angry words, he just picked up his cleaning cart and went back to work. He moved calmly and carefully, showing he wasn't scared. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Look, he's just trying to do his job." Others nodded, no longer just curious, but really impressed by his calm behavior. As he walked through the mall, he saw a store worker having trouble with a fallen display. Right away, he went to help, picking up the dropped items and putting them back nicely. "Thank you so much," the shop worker said happily. The janitor just smiled and said, "I'm glad to help." His kindness made a strong impression on everyone watching. Near the food court, some young people watched him cleaning under their table. One asked, "Why do you work so hard when no one notices?" He looked up with a kind smile and said, "Because little things make the world better." Then he noticed a crying little girl by the escalators. He knelt down next to her and said softly, "Don't worry, we'll find your mom." His gentle words made her feel better right away. Soon he saw a worried mother looking around and brought them together. The mother kept saying thank you, but he just smiled and said, "It's just part of my job," before walking away quietly, as if helping people was the most natural thing in the world. People started sharing stories about him. A young shop worker told how he helped her when she was struggling with work and school. "He told me to believe in myself and take small steps forward," she remembered with a grateful smile. Another worker from the electronics store added, "When our shelf broke and we were really busy, he came and fixed it without us even asking. He's always there when anyone needs help." At the busy coffee shop, he saw the worker was stressed with too many customers. Without being asked, he started helping carry drinks to tables. People noticed and smiled, saying thank you. One customer said, "He's just a janitor, but he acts like he owns this place." The coffee shop worker looked relieved as the janitor went back to his cart, ready to help someone else. Soon after, he noticed an elderly woman having trouble with her walker near the exit. He went right up to her and said, "Let me help you." He carefully helped her to her waiting taxi, making sure she was safely inside before saying goodbye. The group of people following him grew bigger, and they shared more stories about times the janitor had helped them. His actions showed everyone what kind of person he really was: humble, kind, and hard-working. He treated everyone with respect, even people who weren't nice to him. Most people didn't notice his quiet good deeds, but they made a big difference to those he helped. Even as people talked about his fight with the manager, he kept working with pride, not letting it bother him. The difference between him and the manager became very clear to everyone. While the manager was proud and mean, thinking he was better than everyone, the janitor was humble and kind. The manager pushed people away, but the janitor brought them together. He earned respect not by demanding it, but by showing it to others. By the time he returned to the food court, many people were following him, wanting to see what good thing he would do next. His simple acts of kindness taught everyone an important lesson, that it's not your job title or how you look that matters, but how you treat others. Amazing how someone in a simple job can have such a huge impact, and if you want to see how this humble janitor teaches the arrogant manager an unforgettable lesson, hit that like button and subscribe. The best part is coming up. Drop a comment if you believe in karma. The manager paced in his fancy office, getting more angry by the minute. He stopped at his large window overlooking the mall and watched the janitor through the glass. "Who does he think he is?" he muttered to himself, his fists tight with anger. The red MAGA hat seemed to mock him from below. Opening his computer, he started typing fake complaints about the janitor. Unprofessional appearance, disrupting mall operations, making customers uncomfortable. He smiled as he added more lies to the list. The truth didn't matter to him anymore. He just wanted the janitor gone. He called his assistant into the office. "Get me everything you can find on this janitor," he ordered. "I want to know every mistake he's made, every rule he's broken." The assistant looked uncomfortable but nodded quietly. "Sir, he actually has a perfect record," she started to say, but the manager cut her off. "Then look harder." Later that day, he held a meeting with the security team. "I want him watched at all times," he told them, pointing at the security cameras showing the janitor helping an elderly shopper. "Document everything he does." The security guards exchanged worried looks. One spoke up, "But sir, he's one of our best workers." The manager slammed his hand on the desk. "I don't care, just do what I say." The manager spent hours reviewing security footage, trying to find something wrong. But all he saw was the janitor helping people, fixing things and doing his job well. This made him even angrier. He started writing up termination papers, his hand shaking with frustration as he signed them. Walking through the mall, he overheard employees praising the janitor. "Did you see how he fixed the broken display? He helped my grandmother find her way to the food court. He's such a hard worker." Each compliment felt like a personal insult to the manager. He couldn't understand why everyone else didn't see what he saw. A threat to his authority. Standing in front of his office mirror, he straightened his expensive tie and practiced what he would say. "This is my mall," he rehearsed, trying to look powerful. "I make the rules here." But deep down, something bothered him. Maybe it was the way people respected the janitor naturally, while he had to demand respect with his position. He called a special meeting with other department heads. "We need to maintain certain standards here," he said, showing them pictures of the janitor from security cameras. "This kind of appearance isn't acceptable in our upscale mall." But the other managers looked confused. "He's always neat and clean," one said. "And the customers love him," added another. The manager felt his face getting hot with anger. No one seemed to understand his view. During lunch, he watched from the food court as a group of expensive-looking customers chatted with the janitor. They were smiling and thanking him for something. The manager gripped his coffee cup so hard it almost broke. A janitor should know his place, he thought bitterly. He shouldn't be so visible. He spent the rest of the afternoon drafting a new dress code policy, specifically targeting political symbols and headwear. As he typed, his secretary knocked on the door. "Sir, we've received several positive comment cards about the janitor this week." The manager crumpled them up without reading and threw them in the trash. Nothing was going according to his plan. The manager's true colors are showing. Want to see how his plan backfires spectacularly? Hit subscribe now. Karma is about to hit hard. Leave a comment if you've ever dealt with someone drunk on dignity. The manager's anger finally boiled over. After spending all day plotting in his office, he marched down to the main floor, where the janitor was quietly mopping near the fountain. His expensive shoes clicked loudly on the tile floor, drawing attention from nearby shoppers. This time he wasn't going to let the janitor's calm attitude stop him. "Take that hat off right now," the manager demanded loudly, his voice echoing through the mall. The janitor looked up slowly, his peaceful expression unchanged. People started stopping to watch, sensing the tension in the air. "Sir," the janitor replied calmly, "I'm just doing my job, like always." The manager stepped closer, his face red with anger. "Your job is to clean, not make political statements. That hat has no place in my mall." His voice grew louder with each word. More shoppers gathered around them, and some employees peeked out from their stores. A young worker from the phone store pulled out her phone and started recording, others quickly following her lead. "I don't understand why my hat bothers you so much," the janitor said quietly, continuing to mop the floor. "It doesn't affect my work or how I treat people." His calm response seemed to make the manager even angrier. By now, a small crowd had formed a circle around them, phones raised to capture every moment. The manager noticed 2 security guards nearby and waved them over. Tell him about our dress code," he shouted. The guards walked over slowly, looking uncomfortable. One of them shuffled his feet, avoiding eye contact. "Sir," he said to the manager, "there's nothing in the dress code about hats." The manager cut him off with an angry wave. "I don't care what the code says," the manager snapped, turning back to the janitor. "I'm in charge here, and I say that hat goes." The crowd grew larger, with people whispering and shaking their heads at the manager's behavior. Some regular customers who knew the janitor's kindness started speaking up. "Leave him alone," someone called out. "He's the best worker here," added another. The janitor kept mopping, his movements steady and dignified. He didn't raise his voice or show any anger. "Sir," he said calmly, "I respect your position, but I also respect myself. This hat isn't hurting anyone." The security guards looked at each other nervously, clearly not wanting to get involved. More employees gathered around, many recording with their phones. The young woman from the coffee shop who the janitor had helped earlier spoke up. "This isn't right," she said loudly. "He helps everyone here. He makes this mall a better place." Others nodded in agreement, and more voices joined in support of the janitor. The manager looked around, seeing all the phones recording him, hearing the whispers of disapproval. But instead of backing down, his anger grew. "If you won't remove that hat," he said in a cold voice, "then I'll remove you from this mall. Permanently." The crowd gasped at his threat, but the janitor remained unmoved. He simply looked at the manager with calm eyes and said, "I think you're about to learn an important lesson about judging people." The tension is at its peak. Want to see how this power-hungry manager gets the shock of his life? Hit subscribe now. The next part will leave you speechless. The manager had reached his breaking point. "That's it!" he shouted, grabbing his phone. "Security, remove this man from the premises immediately!" His voice shook with rage as he pointed at the janitor. The crowd grew larger, their protests getting louder. The janitor stood quietly, still holding his mop, a slight smile on his face. Just then, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the mall's main entrance. Mrs. Thompson, the head of the mall's board of directors, stepped out quickly. She was dressed in an expensive suit, checking her watch with worry. "James!" she called out, hurrying toward the crowd. "I've been trying to reach you all morning. The investors are waiting in the boardroom for your quarterly presentation." The manager's face froze. "Quarterly presentation?" he stammered, his voice suddenly weak. The crowd fell silent, watching the scene unfold. "Of course," Mrs. Thompson said, looking confused. Then she noticed the tension in the air. "Is everything all right here? James, why aren't you upstairs for the meeting?" The manager's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The janitor, James, smiled gently. "Mrs. Thompson, I was just experiencing an interesting demonstration of our mall's current management style." He turned to face the shocked manager. "I'm James Wilson. I bought this mall 5 years ago after selling my tech company. I choose to work as a janitor 1 week each month to understand our employees' experiences and stay connected with our customers." The manager's face turned pale. On the mall's large screens, security footage began playing, showing his earlier confrontations and bullying behavior. Mrs. Thompson watched with growing anger. "Is this how you treat our employees?" she asked the manager sharply. The crowd erupted in gasps and excited whispers. The security guards who had been hesitating earlier now stood straight, waiting for orders from their true boss. The young employees who had been recording everything couldn't believe what they were seeing. But you're just a janitor," the manager whispered, his voice trembling. "You wear that hat, you clean floors." James straightened up, his presence suddenly commanding despite his janitor's uniform. "Yes, I clean floors. I help people. I do what needs to be done. That's what real leadership is about, serving others, not looking down on them." The crowd burst into applause. Mrs. Thompson turned to the security guards. "Please escort our former manager to HR to process his termination," she said firmly. "We don't tolerate discrimination or harassment in our mall." As the manager was led away, his face red with shame, James called out to him. "Remember this day," he said kindly. "Sometimes the biggest lessons come from the people we look down on. Maybe next time, you'll judge people by their character, not their job title or what they wear." James watched calmly as the shocked manager was led away by security. He reached into his cleaning cart and pulled out a folder filled with papers, property deeds, company records, and banking documents. "I think it's time everyone understood the full story," he said, his voice gentle but firm. The crowd gathered closer as Mrs. Thompson addressed them. "James Wilson isn't just our owner. He's the founder of Wilson Tech, which he sold for billions 5 years ago. Instead of retiring, he chose to buy this mall to create jobs and help our community." She smiled proudly. "And every month he works alongside you all as a janitor." James stepped forward, still in his simple uniform and MAGA hat. "I believe true leadership means understanding everyone's role," he explained. "How can I make good decisions for this mall if I don't know what our employees face every day? Every person here matters, from our cleaning staff to our store managers." Security footage continued playing on the mall's screens, showing clips from the past months. James fixing the broken display in the electronics store at midnight, helping the stressed coffee shop worker during rush hour, teaching the young employee about college applications. But now, everyone saw these moments differently, not just as a kind janitor, but as a leader who truly cared. "The manager judged me by my uniform and my hat," James continued, his voice carrying through the now silent mall. "He saw what he wanted to see, someone he thought was beneath him, but life teaches us that character isn't about what you wear or what job you do. It's about how you treat others, especially those you think can't help you back." The crowd broke into applause again, many wiping tears from their eyes. Store employees began sharing stories about times James had helped them, never revealing his true identity. The security guard stood straighter, proud to work for someone who led by example rather than fear. From today forward, James announced, this mall will have new policies. Every manager will spend 1 week each quarter working alongside our maintenance and service staff. Real respect comes from understanding each other's work. He smiled at the gathered crowd. And yes, I'll still be doing my monthly shifts as a janitor. Security led the former manager to his office to collect his belongings. His hands shook as he packed his expensive items into a box, watching through the window as employees celebrated below. The HR team arrived with termination papers, listing all his documented instances of discrimination and harassment. "You can't do this to me," he protested weakly, but stopped when James entered the office, still wearing his janitor's uniform. "Actually, we can and we must," James said calmly. "Leadership isn't about power, it's about responsibility. You had the power to make this mall a better place, but you chose to use it to bully those you thought were beneath you." As security escorted him through the mall, employees lined the walkways. Some were recording on their phones, others simply watched in silence. The manager kept his head down, his earlier arrogance completely gone. His expensive suit didn't seem so impressive anymore. Near the exit, he passed the spot where he had first confronted James about the hat. The cleaning cart was still there, a symbol of honest work that he had looked down on. James stopped him for a final moment. "I hope you learn from this," he said kindly. "Your next job might have a boss who works beside their employees, just like I do. Remember, treat everyone with respect, no matter what they wear or what job they do." The crowd cheered as the former manager walked out of the mall for the last time. Some employees hugged James, while others shared stories about times the manager had mistreated them. Security began taking down his office nameplate, and maintenance workers rolled a fresh coat of paint over his reserved parking spot. "Let's make one thing clear," James announced to everyone gathered. "In this mall, we judge people by their actions and their character, not their position or appearance. That's not just our policy, it's our promise." As the excitement of the day settled, the mall began to transform. James called all employees together in the main courtyard. Standing there in his janitor's uniform, he shared his vision for the future. "Today marks a new beginning for all of us," he said warmly. "From now on, every voice matters here." The changes started immediately. New policies were posted in every break room, mandatory diversity training, a rotation program where managers worked alongside service staff, and clear guidelines against discrimination. The security team began implementing kinder approaches to their work, following James's example of helping people first. James continued his monthly shifts as a janitor, but now employees watched him with new understanding. They saw how he used these times to really listen to workers' concerns and ideas. Young employees felt comfortable approaching him with their dreams and problems, knowing he would take time to help them. The mall's atmosphere changed too. The stiff, formal feeling disappeared, replaced by genuine warmth. Customers noticed the difference, how everyone from the cleaning staff to the store managers treated each other with respect. Word spread through the community, and more people came to shop, drawn by the mall's welcoming spirit. One morning, the former manager saw himself trending on social media. Videos of his confrontation and humbling exit had gone viral. But alongside these clips were stories about James's leadership style and the mall's transformation. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One man's arrogance versus another's humility. James turned his office into a shared space where any employee could come to share ideas or concerns. The fancy furniture was replaced with comfortable chairs and a coffee machine. "A leader's door should always be open," he often said, "even if that leader is pushing a mop down the hall." 6 months later, the mall had become a model for businesses everywhere. News channels ran stories about the billionaire janitor who taught a powerful lesson about humility and leadership. James's story inspired other business owners to work alongside their employees, learning from the ground up. The most remarkable change was in the employees themselves. The young coffee shop worker who once struggled with customer rushes was now a shift supervisor, trained personally by James. The security guards who had hesitated during the confrontation became trainers for a new approach to mall security, focusing on helping people rather than just enforcing rules. Every month, like clockwork, James still put on his janitor's uniform and MAGA hat, working alongside the cleaning staff. But now, new employees weren't surprised to see him mopping floors or helping customers. It had become part of the mall's culture, a reminder that no job was beneath anyone, and every role deserved respect. The mall's success grew beyond anyone's expectations. Store owners reported record sales, employee turnover dropped to almost zero, and customer satisfaction reached new heights. Business magazines featured the mall's story, with headlines like "The Janitor CEO, How Humility Transformed a Business," and "Leadership Lessons from the Ground Up." Perhaps the most meaningful change was in how people treated each other. The sight of managers helping cleaning staff, security guards assisting lost children, and employees from different stores supporting each other became common. James had created more than just a successful business. He had built a community where everyone felt valued. The story of the mall manager and the billionaire janitor spread far beyond the building's walls. It became a lesson about how quickly we judge others based on their job or appearance, and how badly we can misread someone's true worth. The manager's mistake wasn't just in treating a janitor poorly, it was in believing that a person's job title determined their value. James continued his work, both as the mall's owner and its part-time janitor. His red MAGA hat remained, no longer a source of conflict, but a reminder of the day prejudice met its match. When asked why he kept working as a janitor after the incident, his answer was simple. True respect isn't about power or position. It's about seeing the dignity in every person and every honest job. The mall became famous not for its luxury stores or fancy architecture, but for its heart. Visitors came from other cities just to see the place where a billionaire mopped floors and helped lost children. They watched in amazement as executives carried trash bags and managers helped clean spills. Everyone understood that no task was beneath them if it helped others. Perhaps the greatest lesson wasn't just about humility or leadership. It was about the danger of judging books by their covers, of letting prejudice blind us to people's true character. In the end, the manager had believed he was superior because of his position, while the real owner of the mall was content to push a mop and help others. As James often said to new employees, your position doesn't make you important, your actions do. In life, you'll never know who's pushing that cleaning cart or wearing that uniform. It might just be someone who owns the whole building. If you loved this story of justice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have you ever dealt with someone who judged you wrong? Share your story below.